So for well over 2 years, Governor J.B. Pritzker's had COVID-19 orders in place that he's re-upped month after month and modified them month after month. And we've seen it play out here locally in Sangamon County most recently with the issue of detainees deemed unfit for trial not being transferred to the care of the Department of Human Services as the law prescribes. And that's led to some jail overstaffing issues and really just questions altogether about the treatment that these individuals are getting. Now, as you're hearing in the news, a status hearing was canceled today because in one particular case, the county sued the state to expedite this particular inmate to state custody, while the state, before today's hearing, decided to transfer that inmate. So that happened. This is the second time it's happened where they've had to actually take litigation and force the issue. And the state then, before another court case or court hearing, they transfer the inmate. So we'll hear some kind of the reaction and what's next here when it comes to the statewide perspective, because it's not just happening in Sangamon County. This is something that a lot of counties are experiencing, and sheriffs in particular are having to contend with. So I reached out to the Illinois Sheriff's Association's Jim Kychek, and he kind of shared some of the statewide perspective as to what exactly sheriffs are experiencing in this ongoing problem of detainees, criminal detainees, individuals charged with crimes, some severe in some cases, like murder, for instance, not getting justice because they are deemed unfit for trial and the state is not taking them in for evaluation. Again, here is Jim Kychek from the Sheriff's Association.
Well, I mean, across the state, you've still got a number of people that remain that are supposed to be evaluated by the Department of Human Services that remain in jail custody. So it kind of varies from county to county, obviously, based on the people that they have in their care. But this is not a new problem. I mean, this has been ongoing for a number of years, which is why ultimately I think that Dan Wright and Sheriff Campbell ultimately filed litigation against the state, is because it became the realization that when everything happened with the Department of Corrections no longer taking inmates, and that process is starting to move somewhat better, that their capacities were being even more jeopardized by the fact that they were continuing to house people that really shouldn't be in our care.
So again, the question about overall the quality of care that jails provide, they're not psychiatrists, they're not psychologists. They're there to ensure that detainees are prepared to appear in court to face the allegations brought by prosecutors. They're not there to evaluate whether or not the defendant has mental issues and can't stand trial. That's for the courts to determine, and when courts determine that, it's supposed to be evaluated by the state, not by a county jailer. So Kychek said this has been happening well before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Well, I mean, across the state, you've still got a number of people that remain that are supposed to be evaluated by the Department of Human Services that remain in jail custody. So it kind of varies from county to county, obviously, based on the people that they have in their care. But this is not a new problem. I mean, this has been ongoing for a number of years, which is why ultimately I think that Dan Wright and Sheriff Campbell ultimately filed litigation against the state, is because it became the realization that when everything happened with the Department of Corrections no longer taking inmates, and that process is starting to move somewhat better, that their capacities were being even more jeopardized by the fact that they were continuing to house people that really shouldn't be in our care.
So the question continues about these criminal defendants and the lack of justice they're getting. Here's more from Jim Kychek with the Sheriff's Association.
Yes, it's been a problem for years. I mean, the lack of forensic beds across the state has been an ongoing problem for, I want to say, even decades. Well, they clearly need to make a determination as to whether or not that individual is fit to stand trial. I mean, it's a fitness for court is what they're going for in a lot of cases, is to be able to see, are they of the necessary mental health to be able to stand trial for the alleged allegations, criminal violations that are against them.
But I asked, is this something that, when they are deemed unfit, that they are taken by the state to be evaluated? What happens if indeed they're deemed unfit for trial? What happens to the case?
Well, if they're found unfit, then they continue to be treated until such time as maybe they are found, that they have been restored, and could go into a court process. But unfortunately, we're maintaining people for such a long period of time. It's just to me, it's irresponsible to treat people that clearly need some sort of mental health evaluation and treatment, to put them in this kind of a situation on a regular basis. Now, granted, I understand that whatever act they allegedly committed put them in that situation, but if there was an underlying mental health issue, then let's try to address that.
So we've got this ongoing problem here in Sangamon County where case after case now, and there's multiple cases pending of the state not taking individuals deemed unfit. And then the county sues, and we did have one contempt of court against the DHS director. But then immediately after that, they took an inmate and transferred them just before a status hearing case. They did the same thing. Are they going to do that with these 3 pending cases, if not more? Is this happening across the state? Kychek says the process is hurting taxpayer resources.
Well, I mean, I guess to first answer your one-off, isn't it amazing that I'll have a court hearing that's scheduled for tomorrow, and suddenly today I find an available bed? How does that happen? Right? Just before I go to court, I find a space. Time after time after time.
So what about the idea of a lawsuit? Sangamon County has filed a lawsuit seeking a temporary restraining order against this whole process, or the lack of processing these inmates. Kychek says that there are other counties across the state that may jump onto this particular case in Sangamon County.
Well, I don't know that I can say that that you're going to see all 102 sheriffs sign off on something like this, but this is an issue that I know is being addressed, in different counties on different degrees. So they may have been filing their own litigation separately, unrelated to this, but I think you may see some additional sheriffs sign into this one moving forward.
So that's the issue with DHS, the Department of Human Services. But what about the Department of Children and Family Services? They've got their ongoing problems. The Cook County Public Guardian says that since December, 8 children have died that were being under the watch of DCFS with cases pending. And House Minority Leader Jim Durkin, I talked to him, and he said that this is unacceptable.
Well, I want the governor to take this serious. We had a hearing before the Appropriations Committee back in January, and that time there were 3 contempt of court citations issued against the director of DCFS. Today, there are 12. And the governor and the other Democrats, and I think the director, are treating this as business as usual, which is a horrible, horrible approach and understanding of this agency. We have an obligation to these hundreds of children in care that we are responsible for, to give them treatment, physical and also mental treatment, to give them and get them back into a place in society where they can be productive. But the fact is, I don't know how much more needs to be done with this agency.
He says that they have been treating contempt of court charges as if it's jaywalking, and recent audits have shown that DCFS is not following the law, a law that Governor J.B. Pritzker himself signed. So we'll keep an eye on that space as well. It's 7 o'clock.
From the Fly SPI Studios, take the easy way.